Yeah, I talk about grandma's old jar formula, for budgeting, and it's different from grandma's old jar formula.
We're going to talk about
the business.
So we are live with Peter. I was going to say Carroll, but Nick, I'm wrong. It's McCarroll or McCarroll. McCarroll. Can I say it?
I don't know.
No, it's Peter McCarroll. McCarroll.
You're from New Zealand. What background's the last name?
So we don't know. It's a Scottish Irish blend.
Okay, because he's rolling the R.
Yeah, well, that's how I said it to him earlier.
So
the Mick is MC, which is traditionally an Irish, form instead of Mac, which is the Scottish form. But the Carroll with the two R's.
It's very Scottish the way you're saying that.
Oh. Yeah, so that's traditionally more Scottish. That's what I've been told. The story is boy meets girl, a Scottish boy, Irish girl, or whatever, and the parents forbade them to use each other's last name because they couldn't be, ever associate with the other race, the other, nation. But so they blended their names together, and that's how we got McCarroll. So whether that's true or not, I have no idea.
Yeah, you could pick it up. You do it. Well, we have Scottish uncles. We're not close with that side of our family at all, and for reasons that we don't have even time to discuss today, like every family. But one time, an uncle that maybe called us once called me. I answered the phone. I had some friends over that could overhear the phone, and he was pretty loud on the phone, and he said, "Tommy, is that you?" And they didn't understand what he was saying, and he was like, "Hey, Tommy, is that you?" And it's been a running joke with my friends ever since. Like, that's something that they kind of scream out to me. But it is a really unique accent. The Scottish is so different than the British too.
Yes.
But then you're born in New Zealand.
Yes.
Parents were born in New Zealand as well.
Yep.
Holy smokes! New Zealander who's here in Canada.
Yes.
And then so can you tell us a little bit about your story? Like how did you get to Canada? Why did you leave Canada? Why are you back in Canada? What's up with you?
Yeah. So I came to Canada, Toronto in 1994. And I was...
you might want to speak a bit closer to the mic there.
No worries. I was working for Deloitte's, one of the big CA firms. I'm a CA. And they sent me on what was supposed to be an 18-month assignment. And that lasted 11 years. Well, it took me 11 years to get back to New Zealand. And my
classic consulting organization.
Well, I was an auditor. Not consulting. I was an auditor.
Okay.
And my standing joke to my friends back home was, "I'm going to Canada for 18 months. I'll be back in 18 months and 1 day, and I will not be dating." So when I finally returned, I left New Zealand with 2 suitcases and 2 boxes. I returned 11 years later with 8 suitcases, a 20-foot container full of junk, and 3.3 girls.
3.3? How does that math work?
A wife.
Yeah.
2 daughters.
Yes.
And one that was a third on the way.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I managed to piece it together.
Oh, really? I didn't know if it was a female. I didn't know if there was like a pet. No, it was like a female pet or something like this. Got it.
I had 3 daughters and a son, and one was born in New Jersey, one was born in Vancouver, and the last 2 were born in the same hospital I was born in, Lower Hutt, New Zealand.
So you go back to New Zealand, but then you're back here now.
Yes.
So what's that about?
Yeah, so we were in New Zealand for about 8 years. We lived in the States for 6 years after we got married in 96.
Whoa.
And then Vancouver for 3 years, and then New Zealand for 8 years.
You were in the States and you lived in New Jersey, of all places?
I lived in New Jersey.
New Jersey has a nice spot.
That was number one choice?
That was where the office was that I was sent to next. So
there's nice spots.
There is nice spots.
It's actually quite pretty.
Yeah.
But
especially
out of my list of places in the States, New Jersey probably wouldn't be number one. Like, I'm going to move there. I'm going to go to New Jersey. I figured there was another reason.
Yeah. Look, people think of Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And they go, why would I want to be there? And I would agree.
That's fair.
But you get out of that Newark, sort of New York City, area, and you get into suburbia, which is not bad most places. But then the further west and south you go, it's actually very farmland, very rural, semi-rural. I used to drive, 25 minutes to work, and I'd take the back road through all the farms, and it was beautiful.
Huh.
So I'm sure they've all gone now.
So why are you back in? Tell me again. Why are you back in Canada?
Yeah. So
why are you back here?
Who let you back in? Yeah. Come on, you gotta go talk to somebody. So my wife is Canadian. Okay. So her father died about 10 years ago, and then Mum started to get sick.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So we decided
family pulled you.
Yeah.
Back.
So we decided she needed to be around people. And she needed someone to sort of monitor her and make sure she was okay. And my wife's got 2 brothers, but wasn't viable for them to do that. Mm-hmm. So, we actually made the decision to move back so that we could look after her. So we looked for a house that would be accommodating for her to move in with us, and that she did that. She lived with us for about 6 years before she went into a nursing home, and she died last year.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Would you did you ever consider moving her to New Zealand, or no? That wasn't an option.
No.
Too much hassle, too much work, too much.
All her life was here. All her friends were here. All
Too
her family was
unstabilizing.
here. Yeah, too unstabilizing. Yeah, and I'm not even sure they would have let her in. But, just given her health issues, it's very unlikely that she would have been allowed to come to New Zealand as a permanent resident.
And then you're a licensed accountant in Canada
And New Zealand.
Yes. So how do you get into the whole real estate world? Like what's that about?
You were investing in New Zealand, I think, right?
I did, yeah. So I read, like many real estate investors, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Classic,
and
of course.
That sort of
That damn book pulled us all in.
Exactly.
Pulled us all in.
So I convinced my wife that we needed to look at this, and so we ended up buying a property in New Zealand. It was a new build. We found a brokerage that specialised in professional residential builds. And they built in newer neighborhoods, and they recruited, they wanted to recruit sort of more of your professional class tenants rather than your entry level tenant. So they didn't, focus on the low end, they focused on the medium side of the housing market. And so we built a house and we got tenants in, and initially that was managed by this property management company. Then they screwed up some stuff, so we took it over and managed that, and then we eventually sold that around shortly after we moved to Canada, because we needed the capital out for our house here.
Did you profit on that sale?
Barely.
Does the New Zealand real estate market resemble the Canadian one at all, or no?
No.
What are the population dynamics of New Zealand? Is it a growing population?
It is, yep. So it's about 5 million population now. When I was a boy, we always just say there were 3.3 million people and 90 million sheep.
Wow.
Now it's more like 5 million people and 30 million sheep. So we've obviously
That's why there's
been
always
hungry.
these sheep jokes about
That's
New Zealand.
a lot of sheep jokes.
A lot of sheep jokes.
Exactly.
Especially if I meet an Aussie and a New Zealander and they're like sheep jokes flying back and forth.
Yes.
I don't know what's happening.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so that's pretty decent population growth then.
Yeah.
I mean...
And it's all immigration.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, it makes sense.
Mostly immigration. Yeah.
And where's the immigration from there? Asian immigration, right, is coming down to Australia, New Zealand? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I would say, like in the early days of New Zealand, it was all European. I mean, there's a native population, the Maori, and then, the white folk came and colonized the country and, shipped people in, mostly from Scotland, Ireland, and England, a little bit from the other European nations. And that was the longest time, just all the immigration there was. Then, of course, the railroads, the gold rush, they brought in Chinese people to build the railroads. And now our biggest, New Zealand's biggest immigration is from China. Pacific Islands are big. We have a close connection with Samoa and a lot of other Pacific Island nations.
Are they big? Because the population, I just wouldn't expect that. I didn't think the population of those islands would be large enough to have like an impact from an immigration standpoint someplace.
Well, I mean, you remember New Zealand's a very small population,
already, yeah.
So you get 200,000 Samoans who have migrated to New Zealand, and I have no idea what the population of New Zealand is. So
yeah, but it has an impact even. Yeah,
but it has an impact. And so there's a good multi-ethnic, if you will. I mean, every culture from those Pacific Islands is a little different. It's quite fascinating. The Niueans are different. The Tokelauans are different. But they have a lot in common as well. Now a lot of it's coming from mainland China, and also other parts of Asia as well.
And American billionaires building their bunkers in the middle of New Zealand.
Yes, that's right.
With no access to the rest of the world.
Farmland.
Yes. Okay.
They're not allowed to do that now anymore. So.
Oh, really? Is that a new thing in New Zealand?
They're new land laws. So you
get rid of the American billionaires building their bunkers.
Yeah, it's harder for foreigners to buy property.
Is it?
Much harder. Yep.
Where have I heard this story before? And then what are the way of life or the thinking of a typical New Zealander of your friend group compared to people in Canada? What are the differences? Like, what makes Canadians different than New Zealanders in the way they think?
Well, New Zealand has often been described as the land of duct tape and chicken wire. Okay. So we're very much DIYers, and we are very much generalists. So there's an old joke about a company that was working for a big American corporation, and they wanted to get the experts together. And so they called this New Zealand company to send their experts to this symposium where they all would sit down and talk about this problem. And, this American company sent 15 people. Each person was an expert in one field. The New Zealand company sends one person.
One guy.
One person who was their expert because he knew the most about everything that anyone else did.
Yeah.
And that was what was considered to be an expert because he could answer questions on numerous.
So it sounds like a fun population. Everyone's sharing their opinion. Everyone's an expert in everything.
Yes,
sounds
absolutely.
good.
Yes,
sounds good. Makes for some good conversations over drinks.
A lot of small businesses as well. Once referred to as a land of shopkeepers. Don't know where that analogy comes from.
Okay.
But lots of small business.
And the primary industry, other than the smaller shopkeepers, would be
agriculture.
Agriculture.
Yeah. Yeah, agriculture is the primary export, I should say. So we're well known for our lamb, obviously, with
Lamb,
many sheep.
Wine also, I feel like.
Dairy,
I don't know if that's a newer thing. Dairy.
Wine is very good. So
the butter is good in New Zealand then.
It's fantastic.
Oh, jeez.
Can't get it here.
No. No. So yeah, those are our main
Canada's
exports.
got great stuff, but our butter's not.
Obviously, we got a thriving film industry, Lord of the Rings, that kind of stuff. Weta Studios, big facility.
You're a proud New Zealander. I like it.
Absolutely, I'm wearing my New Zealand.
Yeah, I like it. You're representing. You're representing.
Got the map of New Zealand on the shirt.
Okay, so
underneath here is my Your Life, Your Terms shirt, by the way.
It's the secondary
covered
thing.
up.
It's the
That's
secondary
right,
thing, but we appreciate.
I'm a proud New
We
Zealander.
appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So you read this book, you buy a property, you sell the property, you come to Canada, but then what? You still have the bug?
Well, at that point, when we came to Canada, we were very poor because, I had to hire someone in New Zealand in my business. And we literally started from scratch. So every cent we had went into the property.
Wow.
And I didn't have a job when we got here. My wife didn't have a job when we got here. We just had a house.
So you held on to that house when you first came? Did you? You sold it before you came.
The rental that we had in New Zealand, we sold shortly after we came. We sold our primary house first, but then because I had the mortgage secured over both houses, I couldn't get all my equity out, and the property, our primary house had gone down in value. We'd held it 8 years, and it went down in value. Wow. So anyone that says the property always goes up doesn't study history.
Canadians don't know this theory. Tell us more.
They haven't heard of it.
Peter, tell us more about this theory.
That's heresy.
What are you discussing right now?
Yeah. So we actually lost money on this house that we lived in for 8 years.
Wow.
And then so we sold the rental property, and I think it had gone up, but just not a lot. I mean, I didn't really make any money out of it. So it had gone up a little bit. And so we sold that. That was what we had to do to get our cash eventually out of the country so that we could, make sure we properly, we're in this house here in Markham.
Wow.
And we've been living there now for 9 years.
Okay. And then how do you get back into the real estate investing game in some capacity?
Yeah. So I forget what it was, but it was you connected with you guys somehow.
Okay.
On a podcast. And it might have been...
And you gave us your email address and we stalked you to the end of days.
End of days, absolutely. Yeah. It might have been...
It's a Lord of the Rings thing.
Send Financial or something. But I heard you guys on on someone else's podcast.
Okay.
And then listened to your podcast and then signed up for the... for the big event that you held at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And like a fool, I paid to attend.
Oh, great. Thank you very much, Peter. Yeah.
Yes.
That's not like a fool. That was a very smart decision.
Yes. If I probably made a phone call, I probably could have got it for free.
That was an investment into yourself, Peter.
Yes, it was, absolutely. And then as soon as I went to that, I said, I'm going to become a member. And then I think after the first year, I joined VIP.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Wow,
But
what a journey, man.
Yeah, but you were in real estate in New Zealand, and for over an 8-year period, not real much in the way of returns between those two properties.
No.
So then why, when you came here, did it seem to think like, did you think it was a good idea if you didn't really have the success with it at that point? Like, what was it that made it stay in your head and be like, this still makes sense to me?
Yeah, why bother? Yeah.
Well, I mean, when we lived in Vancouver, we'd bought a condo, and that had gone up significantly in value. When we lived in New Jersey, we'd bought a property before 9/11, and we left just after 9/11, and that had gone up, quite a lot in value. So and we knew the market at the time here in Toronto area was growing well as well. So,
got it. Okay.
So we knew that our experience wasn't necessarily normative. It just was what it was for that season. And, I firmly believe that you have to look at real estate as a long-term play. You can't look at it and go, the market's down, should I sell? It's like you're gonna cut your feet off and you'll never survive if that's the mindset you have. You have to look at it long term. So the fact that the market's up or down, or even if you don't actually make money on the growth of the property, you've still made money. Ultimately,
because you're talking about the debt being paid down.
Yeah,
what are you talking?
You're getting debt paid. If you stay not long enough, you're getting debt paid down. Yes, you eventually will.
You should have some tax efficiencies, I would imagine, that you could benefit from.
Yeah.
Okay.
New Zealand is great too because it has no capital gains tax.
Really?
Huh.
Still?
Don't know how long that'll last, but they still.
Yeah, most countries are looking at that. They're trying to get rid of that.
They've put in a land capital gains tax, but only if you sell within certain periods of time. So right now it's up to 10 years. Before it used to be 2 and then 5, and now it's 10.
10 years?
Yeah, so if you hold it for more than 10 years, There's no cap.
So then you've seen all these different parts of the world. You come here. Did you decide on a certain property type, and why did you make that decision?
So listening to you guys, decided that student rentals looked like a really good idea.
Okay.
I love the fact that you can generally get a little more on student rentals than you can if you just rent the house out. And you get a regular turnover of tenants. So you're not stuck with one tenant that's been there for 10 years and now the rent is way below market rent. I remember I went and looked at one house, early last year, out in the Colburn area or something, and this woman was complaining, that she was paying, that she wouldn't be able to find another place, and she was paying like $550 a month in rent for a 2-bedroom apartment, and I'm like, okay, no one's going to buy this property with you in it, lady. The only people that can afford to buy this property are people who want to move in for themselves, because no investor like me is going to want to take that deficit.
It's a shame. It's a shame, but
when we started with student rent, like we hadn't been investing long enough to think of that as one of the benefits. So we never really looked at that as a benefit.
No,
but it
turned out to be a benefit.
More and more people that have got into student properties have said that's one of the reasons, because it's usually every 2 to 3 years what people will turn over, and then you can kind of reset rents at that point.
The longest we've had is maybe 4 years. Maybe we had a group once 5.
Yeah, because we've had some people that stay, like a couple people will stay a little bit extra, and then they'll backfill the property.
But sometimes it's 2 years, and you're changing out a group.
Sometimes I've got a group right now. The last couple of it only been 1 year each. But
that happens.
You just don't know.
What school are you close to?
So I'm in Peterborough.
Okay, got it.
The reason I chose Peterborough was because I'm in Markham, so I'm on the east side of the GTA. If I was investing out in the west quadrant, in London or anywhere like that, or Niagara, trying to cross town.
Especially now. So what's that, Trent?
In 1 hour.
Are you close to Trent?
Trent and Fleming College.
Okay, got it.
2 great schools in the community.
Yes, and there's student rental opportunity around.
They're starving. They are starving for rentals.
So it's pretty much like everywhere.
I've seen them build it, and because up in that area, I've been through a couple of times, and they've been building new units, but there's still more demand out there too. Yeah, it's just everywhere.
And then is it a condo, a house? What did you buy out there for students?
So I've got 2 standalone houses and 1 half of a duplex.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And do you mind me asking just roughly what are the rents right now? Either what you see as market rent or what you're going to, it doesn't matter. Just paint me a ballpark so I have an idea.
Yeah. So, I mean, the rents are going up, like you see everywhere.
Yes.
Right now, sort of 700 is sort of about the norm.
Okay.
So you can get more than 700 if you've got a nice modern, especially with private bathrooms, or you might be down at, say, 650. Depend if you got like I've got some of the 2 of mine are older homes,
sure,
so limited bathroom capacity, so you can't charge premium rates. So 650 is sort of what I'm getting on those properties, and then I've got a newer property that's the half of the duplex.
Okay,
it's much more of a single family home, but I was able to let that just now for $700 a month.
Oh wow,
per room.
Wow,
and you're getting 1 year leases out there.
Oh yeah.
So same type of thing. May for like when does the lease typically start?
Yeah, May 1. You want to get everybody in on the 1st of May.
The weirdest thing is
the residences empty out, and so you want people want that commitment.
Yeah.
With student rentals, the nice thing is the 1 year lease. The only place I struggled to get that was at York University, and the only thing I could figure out was the student body there was so transient, and that there was always people coming and going. There was always turnover of programs, whereas it's because it was a local Toronto school. I think you had people kind of coming in and leaving,
going home, coming back.
Yes. Whereas you had these places, they were kind of just going there. They knew they were going to be there for a certain amount of years. They wanted to leave their stuff there. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, the university towns almost were a little bit different. Like you said, part of it is over the summer. It's almost a storage unit for them.
Yeah, but the difference is at York, the rents already, like that was 10 years ago. We were renting out the top one, which was our biggest room. That was like at $850. So like back then, the rents were really high on some of them. So at Western right now, my son is paying $650 for his, but his is a bit of a beat down property. But some of the other ones, I don't know if you've heard us say, Peter, is that rented out $1,100 a room. Really nice, redone. Every bedroom has its own ensuite bathroom attached. So, really kind of, I would call it high-end student rental living. So that's not the norm.
But still $1,100. But
$1,100. I mean, when we started doing this, I think it was like $325 or $340 comes to mind, a room. $340,
so, I was going to say $350, but somewhere mid $300 range for sure. Yep.
And then how have you, because a lot of people are petrified of student rentals, how has the journey been so far?
So I've had I wouldn't call it a nightmare, but one bad experience. Generally speaking, the kids are fantastic. I mean, all the guys and girls I've got in my places are wonderful kids. I've never really had major problems. The first group of tenants I had on my first property left really badly. And, they left the place with stuff in it. They left it a mess. I ended up having to, get a dumpster in and sort of throw stuff out. And then the place was so disgusting.
That's when you want to sell.
Yeah, and I ended up basically having to give the new tenants coming in a massive discount on that first month because, there was a cockroach infestation that no one had told me about.
Jeez.
It's like you make that phone call to me and I'm on the phone within an hour to get the place fumigated within a few days kind of thing. But, like this, and it was bad. And I felt so bad for these kids coming in.
You're going to hit that eventually. Yeah. And you're going to hit that eventually, but you just hit it right with that one. Looks like right out of the gates.
Yeah. But if you took care of it, I mean, most of the times I find with those groups, if they've had experience, especially if they've had other siblings, they almost are walking into that May 1 date knowing they're walking into a bit of a disaster.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing has been what I've found, as long as you're responsive during those times, it's no problem, because I think a good percentage of landlords with student properties are not responsive at all, and they just let that stuff sit there, and then it becomes a problem. But someone like you, if you're handling that stuff, and you're being fair to them and giving a discount. We've done stuff like that before, and then it smooths it over for like the longer term, and you can rebuild that relationship and have them there for a couple of years, and it works out for everyone.
We had a situation like that, Peter, and we didn't know either, and we had a property manager to get the new group in. So like on changeover day, one group's leaving. It's a bit of it's chaos. This is by McMaster. One group's leaving, another group's coming in, and we hired a property manager because we're like, okay, we can't handle this anymore. We will find the new group of tenants because we were really good at signing on new groups of tenants, but we can't be there for all this stuff. Hire a property manager. My phone rings. We're having like a team meeting here at Rockstar. The property manager, I guess, has their junior property management assistant or something there. She just says, okay, I'm going to put you on speakerphone. Immediately, I know that I'm in for it. Like whatever's happening next, I know it's trouble. I hear the speakerphone because I know it's changeover day, right? I'm on speakerphone, and there's like 3 or 4 moms just start yelling at me into the phone. Like I'll just never forget this. And I had to just tell everyone, hey, listen, calm down. We didn't know the house was left as dirty as you're saying. We hire a property manager. I kind of wish the property manager told you we will do absolutely everything to fix every single problem. Please just make us a list and we're on it, instead of just attacking me over the phone like this.
God knows what they were told by the property manager. They probably said, well, we don't, we cited some policies or something.
Oh my gosh. We had one mom who was completely out of control, like hysteria. We went to the point where in the basement, Nick, I don't know if you remember, there was a small water leak. We took that so seriously. We renovated the entire basement and waterproofed the outside of the house. Do you remember this?
No.
Yeah, we did a full renovation in the basement and waterproofed the side of the house. And it was way overkill, like going above and beyond to make sure everything was right.
To be clear, because we wouldn't have done that just to appease this person. If maybe it needed to be done or something.
Yeah, I just
want to set the stage. I'm like, we're not going to be like, someone complains about a little bit of water, and we're going to be like, okay, we'll renovate the whole basement.
Yeah, can you imagine? But so we always kind of take care of things. We do that with the house, and I think the student rentals, as long as you're respecting the students, they kind of respect the house.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been our experience over the years.
So what I look for when I'm looking at the students is I'm looking to see a group of friends. That was the mistake I had with this first group that came in. They were a bit late in the process, and so it was like, well, they were the only people on my list, and so I just said yes. And
they didn't know each other.
And yeah, some of them knew each other, but they weren't really a group of friends. So now I actually interview. So this last round, we've got some guys moving out at the end of this month, and so I'm looking for a new group to move in. And so I actually said, I'm going to do a Zoom interview with you all. If you want the place, I'm doing a Zoom interview. I would like to meet everyone on that Zoom call.
That's the way to do it. Always worked out for us with groups of people who know each other.
And this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking to see, are you guys friends? Are you bouncing off each other? Or are you I know this guy from school, but that's it. So no, I'm looking for friends.
It's the best way to go.
Yeah. Change it.
Because they then own the residence. They own that property. They don't want it to be, it's not like, well, you're just a roommate. It's like, no, we're family. That's what I want them to be. I want them to feel like a family, not just subtenants.
That's how we've seen people, then they live in the property, and like the common areas of the property, they use them. And there's like a Christmas tree. And they decorate and they do things, and there's like they bring in furniture. You can see that they hang out in those areas versus everyone's just sneaking away to their room and they just kind of live completely separate lives, and it changes the whole dynamic of the property.
Absolutely.
It's kept better. Everything's better about it.
They put all the empty vodka bottles in the recycle boxes.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So when I look at a place to buy too, I know that the trend is to build these new, modern student rentals with no living space, but I don't like that because I want them to feel like it's home. I want them to have a shared sense of ownership.
Yeah, it's a nice way.
And so to have a small lounge, doesn't have to be big, but just a place where you can have a sofa and a TV and you can have some friends over and play some cards or whatever, and a dinner table where you can sit down and eat a couple of people together. Whether that's just in the kitchen or whether that's in a separate room, whatever, or an open plan kitchen. I think that makes the place feel different. If everything's just about my room, well, that's what they're going to see the property as. It's just my room.
Totally.
I want them to feel like this is my home and own it.
We've always enjoyed that. We call it a common area. You're calling it a lounge. We've always believed in having a nice common area in all of the student rentals. You're giving me
some people are scared of that because they think, and we haven't had this experience, but they think with that house is going to be used as a party house because of that. And we've never really encountered, it goes back to,
we've had parties at our houses, but it hasn't been an issue.
Yeah. So that's never become a big, kind of point of concern for us.
Yeah.
With the benefits in our experience have far, like you're saying, they're far outweighed any downfalls for sure.
Yeah. I remember showing a group, Nick, this is the one property that is close to Mac there, that one group, I remember walking them through the house. It was a group of guys that were friends and they were talking about the parties that they were going to have, and that didn't serve them well because when you're trying to find a new group, if the first thing you're hearing about are like the big parties they're going to have, I remember saying no to them.
Yes.
And I bet they didn't know why, but it's because they were right behind me talking about all the great parties they were going to have in the house. But we did have a group of guys once that was really messy. We've had girls that have been messy. One group of guys, I remember there was like a thing of ketchup or plum sauce or something tipped over in the fridge, and he let it all leak out, and it leaked out of the fridge onto the floor, and there was a pool on the floor. And I remember, and then in the corner of the kitchen, I don't know if you remember, there's like 10 pizza boxes. And I remember thinking, like, are you going to, how are you living like this? This is just disgusting. So we have had some people, but in general, clean, house is kept nice. It's been fantastic.
Yep.
One group did build a mountain bike course in our backyard, and we had to tell them to disassemble it. Like, take that down, remember?
Yeah.
They had ramps and everything.
We were worried a little about liability. We're like, if they fall off this and someone breaks something, that's not
because off one of the patios, there was a drop.
Yeah.
They had some stuff. And then in another student rental property, I did have a bed bug problem once that Nick didn't have to deal with. I had to deal with this particular problem. And that was kind of gross because all the students were back home. They were actually foreign students, so they weren't in the country. So I had to go in the house myself. Got exterminators. They couldn't figure out they couldn't kill the bed bugs. So then I had to go in and throw out all the clothes, these students' clothes, and there's bed bugs in. Have you dealt with bed bugs? It's nasty.
I know.
It's just nasty. And then we ended up getting some white powder from the States that you can sprinkle along the baseboards of the house and stuff, and it worked. Like, that was better than the Toronto-based exterminator that we got to come out. They had to heat the house up. It was a disaster. And I threw out their clothes without asking them questions too, which you should never do. Because I just reported to them, I'm like, hey, I had to throw out all your clothes. And they had some nice clothes, like really nice Jordan apparel and stuff like that. Threw it all in the garbage. I had to. It was disgusting.
Yeah. You don't hear as much about bed bugs. There was a while in the Toronto area that there was
bed bugs were everywhere.
Stuff everywhere. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you just don't hear about it as much, or it's because it's like old news, or if it's just not as prevalent. But there was a period of time where I felt like it was just a much bigger issue. But I don't know. We haven't heard it. I haven't heard anyone talk about them recently, at all.
And then, Peter, you're using one lease. I'd imagine everybody's on one lease.
Yeah, get everyone on one lease.
Okay. And then when you were to find these new groups of students, what time of the year by those schools are you advertising for the new groups?
Well, I would advertise as soon as I'm told that a group's moving out.
So when would that be?
So I want January.
So you're checking in with them late November, December to try to figure out if they're coming back?
I usually check in with them early January.
Okay, early January.
To say, hey, okay, your lease is, your 12 months is coming up. What are your intentions? Of course, they're allowed to stay. You can't.
Sure.
You can't kick them out. But if they say no, look, we're moving on, like one of mine did, then like that night, I'm like on placesforstudents.com and listing the property, and you get inquiries sometimes within half an hour.
And then how many weeks does it take for you to find a new group?
It can be. It depends on the time of year. That January, February is sort of prime searching season.
Okay.
So if you're listing in January or February, you'll get lots of responses. If you list later than that, you're getting desperate people because they haven't been able to find a place.
And then the mismatched groups come together.
Yeah. Then you get people who are because I'm doing 6-bedroom houses, so or 5-bedroom houses. So what you end up with is I've got 4, but I have to go and find a 5th or a 6th, and so it's not quite as good. You get in early, you get those groups that have made that intention to live together, and they're looking for a 5-bedroom or a 6-bedroom house to live. So it didn't take long at all. In fact, when I had one property I bought 2 years ago, and the guys, this was the first lot of tenants that weren't so good, and they told me they were moving out, and I knew they'd only be there for 1 year when I let the place, and so I started searching in sort of late January, and I had, I think, about 15 groups of people respond to the ad. I followed all your instructions. I had an open day. I had them lining outside in the freezing cold. And of course, COVID protocols, shoes off at the door, masks on, bring your group through. I mean, they were literally lining up down the street. I think we had about 8 groups come through in the space of, an hour and a half. Okay.
Good for you.
And so out of those 8, I look at it, man, there is such demand. So I picked, and actually the hardest thing was choosing which group to offer it to, because 3 of them were like, here's our paperwork. Like on the same day, here's our paperwork. And others will say, well, yeah, we're really interested.
Isn't it crazy?
And then you feel bad. Then you feel bad.
Yeah. How do you choose? How do you choose of all these groups?
Yeah, because some of them, like when in the past, when we've told people they didn't get it.
Oh, you feel like your heart's broken
like just
for
a
them.
really good group of kids. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, but these guys spoke up first, so we'll just go with these guys because we don't know how to make it perfectly fair. It's
sometimes some groups come up faster with the money.
Yeah.
So you're like, hey, listen, they're already committing with the first and last. You're telling me it's going to take a few days. I need to kind of do this.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. So I like the ones that act quickly. Now what I do is I make sure that I say, okay, well, if everyone, I'm going to give you till this date, like 2 days, and then we'll do Zoom interviews, and then after that I'll make my decision.
Wow,
So
look
very
at
quick.
you with the Zoom interviews.
Yeah.
See, we didn't...
A week and a half. By the time I had the showing to the time I made my decision was a week and a half.
Nick and I were doing this in our 20s still. We didn't know what we were doing. And we were smart enough to figure out how to get everyone there at the same time to build up the demand. But then we would just tell them, listen, whoever shows up with the money first is going to get this property. Like, we didn't think enough to do another round of interviews or something. And we would have people literally running to bank machines, or calling parents trying to raise money and come back to show us the money. But that's what we had people doing, like literally leave now, and whoever shows up first with the money, you get the house. I'm not saying that's the best way to do it, but that's actually what we did. But we didn't know, like we were clueless at the time.
And we didn't want to come back. We were feeling the property always in one showing. So we're like, why do we come back? We'll just make them do this now, and then it's all done, and it's kind of wrapped up.
Yeah,
and they come ready. I mean, they know that if they don't take action quickly, they will not get the places. There's so few houses, especially at that 6-bedroom level, in the community in Peterborough, that they know that they have to jump on it if they want one. Otherwise, then they got to work out, well, who do we like the least? You guys have to go and find your own place, and we'll go and get a 4-bedroom. There's a lot more of those.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, that's just, it creates problems.
Yeah,
I think when you try to explain it to parents who have their kids in first year of university somewhere, and it'll be November, December, and I'll be telling them, oh my gosh, like, has your son or daughter started looking for their year 2 house outside of residence? And like, no, we were going to deal with that later. I'm like, oh my gosh, no, you have to go now. Like, you're almost too late. You got to go now. Yeah. I'm trying to put the fear of God into them.
We've rented ours before so the kids that were in there were leaving. We've rented it in November. So end of November, we've rented it. We've rented in December multiple times, and end of November is the earliest for the following May. And what we found,
and so then we're getting last month's rent like a year and a half in advance.
And what we found is some of the more, and even then into January, but we find that if you're on it early, like you've suggested, the more proactive groups, which is typically a sign from the 10 groups that you might want, they're a little more proactive, more organized. Yes. So, that's just, they kind of got things together. You might want those people in the house. It's a good time to be, if you're on it as a landlord, you generally attract those ones because those are the ones looking a little bit earlier because they've been through the process. Maybe they have an older brother or sister or someone that's gone through it before, and they know that they got to be on it, so they got on it early.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And then insurance, have you had any issues getting the student rental insurance, or you managed to get that okay?
So I've got an insurance broker that is okay with student rentals.
Okay, good.
So that's been fine.
Great.
It's actually more the mortgage
Sure.
A lot of lenders don't want.
They don't want a student rental.
Like I've got a friend who is a mortgage broker, and she says, "Don't even come to me with student rentals."
Yeah.
They're just so hard to do, and you sort of have to not say certain things, and and the mortgage broker was like, okay, well we want the last tenants out before the inspector, the valuation guy comes over, and if it looks like a student rental, if he writes that on the form, you might not get the loan, or you'll get it, but it's going to be more expensive.
Yeah, we've
and
heard
they want
that
more
too.
money down. So it's a case of you want it to look like a single family home.
I'm surprised. So you're right. We get that. I'm just surprised that they take that approach, because if they were able to zoom out a little bit, and if they ran their numbers, I'm curious, what % of the properties were severely damaged when they had to take them back, or like how are the actuaries running the numbers?
Yeah, the risk analysis on this seems wrong.
It seems wrong to me too, because typically with student properties, there's rent payments. So unless the landlord's doing, it's not usually a problem people covering mortgages, at least from the rents. The landlords could be doing whatever they want with the
and
money.
they can
That's
demand
different.
the proper insurance.
They can get the proper insurance, and then the properties are there. There's demand for them. There's, the ones that I've seen, like we've seen a lot of investors do student properties, and those things come up where the things have, been a bit dirty, or there's a bunch of stuff left in it. But overall, the properties, we've never really encountered one where it's like just destroy, like, there's $100,000 of work and the bank's going to have to take care of that. There's none of that type of stuff. The biggest thing is there's been it's really is when the people leave, it has got to be cleaned, and because it looks pretty dirty and it looks grimy. But then once you get it cleaned, you're like, oh, okay, it's a good house again. So it's other than $500 in cleaning,
and the income, as far as a rental goes, to your point earlier, Peter, the income is higher than a regular rental property. So the revenue being generated on this thing, like if you're talking at the low end 650, if anyone can do the math on 5 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms, if you get a 7 bedroom house, the numbers kind of work on it.
I'm guessing they're just looking at. If they don't have complete insight into it, they must just be looking at the tenant profile as more transient, because they're turning over more frequently, and to the banks,
more risk on their risk analysis.
The bank size, they just see it as there's not going to be a stable tenant. But I mean that's
because I remember it was
rental property.
On one of my declared student rentals, TD, when I went to refinance, it just said no. They said, we don't do student rentals. And I'm like, well, you have the financing on the place right now. It's a declared student rental. And they're like, yeah, but we just changed our mind. We're no longer going to refinance it. And that was a pain. And then we've had insurance companies before just send us letters saying, our auditors are saying we're not insuring these anymore. Remember? I think they gave us like 90 days. 90 days, find you insurance, be gone. Wow. So you deal with these things. But again, the upside on this stuff too is the properties tend to be in areas that are good areas, by schools and universities. They get the appreciation because they're tied even though the income's good, they're tied to the residential real estate market in Canada. And the residential real estate market isn't in student rental land. It's not tied to the income on the property. It's tied to just all the residential homes. So you kind of get the ride of the residential real estate, not just like a cap rate on the property.
Yeah. I look at it as less risk than a regular single family home rental.
And you're saying that because of the multiple people paying the rent?
Yeah. I've got 6 subtenants, if you will. So if one of them goes down, it's not like I've lost the entire rent. Okay, and I make it very clear to the tenants, you're all equally responsible. If one of you can't pay, don't come to me.
Yeah, you're signing a lease for this amount.
That's right. You guys have to make it work together. So that puts a lot of peer pressure on them. Okay. Whereas if you have a single family home and they, unfortunately they lose a job or have a medical crisis, what do? Well, they expect the landlord to subsidize their lifestyle. Okay. Well, I make it very clear to the kids. I get parental guarantees. If they're offshore, if they haven't got parental guarantees, I ask for payslips. Just prove to me you've got an income. You can afford this place. Okay. And it's not expensive. Less than $700 a month. But I want to make sure they can afford the place.
Sure.
There's no point in doing credit checks on these kids because most of them have barely had a credit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I don't worry about.
But we've had
checks.
good success, a very limited, almost rounding to zero issue on bounced rent, bounced check. I'm talking like an old person now, bounced checks. I don't think you use that.
Well, a lot of the checks, the majority of them were in the parents' names, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like they were like doctor. It would be doctor whoever that's writing the check. But very few parents are going to bounce rent checks on their kids. I mean, some might do it to teach them a lesson. You never know. But it's
exactly. Yeah.
It's very few. So you did this. So you got into that market initially, and then you had one property because you thought the numbers on them would be a little bit better. And then because you saw the demand for that property, that's why you bought the others?
I rang my coach and I said, find me new houses now.
I know.
There is so much demand. And the crazy thing was, so we started looking right away. And we didn't have much luck the first few weeks. Then we found, ultimately 2 properties at the same time. Now, that was a mistake. Getting finance on 2 properties at once, I didn't realize how much of an issue that would be. But we ended up with 2 properties at once. And I then went back. As soon as I had a signed contract, it wasn't even unconditional yet. Okay, I went back to the 2 groups that I had interviewed the last time, a month earlier, and I said to them, I've just bought a new property. Would you like to? And I'm willing to offer it to you as first priority. Would you be interested?
And they hadn't.
And they hadn't found a place, and they said, yes, please. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh wow, good for you. But that's
so I had them tenanted before I even owned them. Wow. I had committed,
and you managed to get through the financing.
Lucky you got the financing, or they'd be out of luck.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I didn't realize it, and we had, because everything was too tight and last minute. We actually didn't close on time, and I had people sitting in U-Haul trucks outside trying to move in, and we couldn't get them to move in because the finance company had screwed us over, and it wasn't ready on that day, and it was a bit of a nightmare.
But that's how you learn. You bid off a lot, and then you chew.
Oh yeah. I was spitting that gristle for a long time.
Yeah, you chew like crazy on that stuff. But most people, I find, when they're doing something, that's how you learn. You kind of have to bite off a lot, and then you learn. If you know of all the problems with financing, buying 2 properties at the same time in advance, you just never do it. Instead, you just did it because you were a bit naive in that area, and it helps you.
Yes.
So the accountant in you, what do you like most about rental real estate right now from an just from an accounting perspective with someone's personal finances? Is it the owning of the asset? Is it an income stream that you're controlling? Is it some of the tax stuff that you perhaps can use? Is there a component that really appeals to you most?
It's all of those things in combination. So ultimately, long term, it's about that passive capital growth. Okay, the rental stream on the income is positive. I wouldn't buy a property that wasn't going to be positive cash flow. Just doesn't make any sense. It's that expectation that even if it's only a small amount a year, you are beating inflation. As you guys say, a mortgage is a hedge against currency. And right now, I'm quite happy to be in debt because I know that my properties, long term, are going to increase in value, and my debt is going to get paid off by my tenants. So, no matter what, even if I just sit around and just make no money on these properties for the next 15 years, I will be a millionaire. That's it. I'll be, in 20 years, whatever, I'll be a millionaire just because I've got 3 properties.
So it's the slow, not sexy approach.
Yep, absolutely. Slow, not sexy.
And it sounds like, just hearing you describe, it's giving you some comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I've got 4 kids, and they are not going to be able to afford property themselves, and at least not in Toronto. And so part of my strategy, I still need to get 1 more property. Part of the strategy is to be able to say, maybe when you guys need to buy a property, I might sell one of these, liquidate some of that cash, and now maybe I can help you into a property. Now, don't tell them that.
I like, well, you're hedging. You're saying maybe and might.
Maybe and might. That's right.
Or borrow against it.
Or borrow against
it.
That's right.
Have it paid down again without you having to pay it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, again, that's just part of my thinking. I'm thinking long term. This is my retirement plan. Mm-hmm. Most Canadians, their retirement plan is their house, which is adequate. But, again, you can't guarantee anything. Or if you're like me, you got a small business, you think that your small business is your retirement plan. Most small business owners get nothing out of their small business.
It's a shame,
when they
but
stop
it's true.
working.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can't assume that your business will actually be saleable. So, I've got 3 feathers in my bow. I've got the property that we own. I've got a business that I own, 2 businesses, and I've got now a growing real estate portfolio.
Good for you, Peter.
And the real estate portfolio will probably be more valuable
probably
than the others in the long run.
Yeah. I'll never forget when our father closed his business and there was nothing left. There was no value in the business. He literally just stopped operating it.
Yes.
And we had to move out of the industrial unit that was close to our family home at the time. And I remember the last day pulling out the last stuff, boxes of drywall screws and some things, taking out and kind of cleaning out the last bit and closing the door. And I just had this kind of crazy moment of clarity where I thought, oh my gosh, my dad, our father worked all this time to create this business. It's now just gone, closed. But this industrial unit, whoever owns this industrial unit
Still has an
got
asset.
the benefit of our father paying rent all these years, working so hard on a construction company, a drywall company, to be able to pay the rent. This landlord, the owner of the property, got that, and he's now just going to put in another business. He doesn't care about our family. He's just going to stick in someone else and collect more rent. And I know, like, this person obviously took on debt and leverage and had to buy the property. And so good on this person, whoever owned these units, to be able to do that. But it just hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, real estate really has lasting value. Whereas our father's business was really operating, producing cash flow, and then it just went to nothing.
And we drive by that unit every time we go to our parents' house still. So
Swear at
there.
them.
Yeah. Can you imagine what it's worth
Well,
now?
I know. Well, how many units are in that complex? A lot.
It's right
It's
off-
a fairly
yeah.
decent size, right off Eastgate Parkway in Mississauga. And there's, and you just see it. And it's still, to this day, I'm like, look, that guy's just
Still
sitting
there,
on that
still
property.
charging rent.
Just businesses are turning over,
Yeah.
coming and going. It's great.
Yeah.
Well,
And the reality is that most small business owners, you guys know this intimately because I've heard you talk about it, but most small business owners have a job they can't quit for which they're not getting paid well. That's the reality for most small business owners. It's a job they can't quit and they're not getting paid well enough. They would actually be better off closing their businesses and going to work for somebody else, most small business owners. And that's such a shame because you're taking on so much risk as a business owner.
Stress.
And I tell all my clients, if you can't make $100,000 a year, especially here in the GTA, just go and work for somebody else. Life is so much easier. And you'll probably make more money and have less stress.
they hate you for that when you say it?
Yeah, well, they all recognize it. They go, yeah, you're right. But of course, and they don't want to do that because they think that one day they'll turn that around.
Sure.
And so that's why in my accounting practice, I don't do one-off tax returns. Like if someone listening to this says, "Oh, Peter, could you do my T1?" I'm like, "No, sorry, we don't do that." Okay, I only do T1s for my small business clients, business owners.
Sure.
So I don't do walk-ins off the street. But what we focus on is we actually focus on trying to build profitable businesses. Because what we know is that the pathway to success in business is about building a long-term profitable business where the owner is getting paid what they're worth and retaining profit, and then letting the owner not be the essential cog in the wheel of their business. The reason your dad's business went down was that he was the most important person. If he couldn't show up to work, no one made any money that day. So when he has to stop work, there's nothing to sell. He was the business. But if you can turn that around and turn your business into a cash-producing machine rather than a job that you can't quit, well, now you've got something to sell. And a business that can produce profit, nothing's guaranteed, but a business that produces consistent profit without the owner being required to show up every day is imminently sellable. People will buy that all over the place and pay a pretty penny for it. So that's what my passion is we want to build profitable businesses. Our mission is to help entrepreneurs build profitable businesses that bless their family, their team, and their community. That's our mission. I don't get out of bed to do a tax return. I talk about a tax return like, when you go to a restaurant, you walk in, you're not thinking about the bathroom.
Yeah, it's a necessary evil.
It's a necessary evil. You sit down, you want the conversation, you want the smell, you want the taste and the texture. And sure, you are going to have to visit the bathroom. Because if you don't, bad things happen.
And when they're nice, it's better.
That's right. You can have nice bathrooms. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's what a tax return is to me. If you don't do it, bad things will happen to you. Okay, but it has to be done, and it should be done well.
We know many people who don't do it for years at a time.
That's right, yeah.
And they're always mystified why their life is miserable for 6 months dealing with CRA.
And eventually bad things happen.
And then eventually bad things happen.
Absolutely. So that's our philosophy, is that we want to make sure that our clients are building profitable businesses. Because if they haven't got a business that's paying them well, they should just go and get a JOB. Because they already have one, they just can't quit. Okay? And they want a business that's actually allowing them to be removed from that business, because that's how you create an asset rather than just a paid position.
It's a true asset. What is one of the tips that you like to talk to people? Is it something you were alluding to before we started recording? I forget. Was there something you were going to mention about profit or something?
So there's a philosophy called Profit First, and it's based on a book by Mike McCarroll.
Geez, everyone loves this book. I've had this book mentioned to me so many times. Yeah. It just makes me think of my old jars. Yeah. But I think it must be similar.
Well, it is. I mean, this is the crazy thing. I used to teach a budget course, and in this budget course, I teach Grandma's envelope method. You got an envelope for groceries, an envelope for rent, an envelope for this, an envelope for that, envelope for holidays, all this kind of stuff. And you get your salary and you just break it out and you just put money in the envelope. And that's how grandma used to run the household, right? Well, I was working with clients and giving them, what Mike McCarroll calls crap gap. GAAP, GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles, and he says it's crap gap. Okay, because what we're teaching our clients, accountants, we're taught like this, is that your profit is what comes out at the bottom. It falls out of your operations, a little bit like, going to that bathroom. Okay, profit is the last thing you think about. And what he says is turn it around the other way. Think about profit first. Pay yourself first, and then organize your business around that as your reality, rather than that as your result. It's a brain shift.
So what percentage would you use? Is there a range for business owners of different types, or what percentage would you tell business owners to save first?
Yeah. So it depends on the type of business.
Yeah.
It's the generic number.
Yeah.
So 5%. 5% of what we call real revenue. So real revenue is not your top line sales. That's fiction. Top line sales are fiction.
Damn, is it?
It is.
I like looking at that number, though. It's a fun number to look at.
It's not about what you
come on, Peter. It's a fun number.
Keep. Yeah. I know it's a fun number. So in profit first language, we're taught to look at what's called real revenue. So in accounting language, you might talk about gross profit. So you might sell $1 million. But the stuff you sell costs you $400,000 to buy. Your gross profit is $600,000. Well, that's your real revenue.
Mm-hmm. Even that's not a real number.
No, it's not. No. But that's the number you've now
I'm
got.
Getting sad. Now I'm getting sad. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, now you've got to pay staff.
Yeah.
You've got to rent your facilities, and you've got to pay the power bill.
Everything.
And
paper, pens.
So that real revenue number is the number we focus on, because that's what you get to control. You get some control over your margins, but that's the money you get to use. Okay, so 5% of real revenue is generally the ideal target for your profit allocation.
Okay.
So every time you get paid, so you work on a rhythm, you maybe do it twice a month.
That's more than fair. 5% seems more than fair.
And this is not paid to the owner. This is actually profit retention in the business. Okay, so for every dollar of real revenue you bring in, you're going to take 5 cents and put it in a separate bank account.
So the practical implication of that is you'll get your clients to open another bank account?
Oh, my clients open at least 7.
I will fight with people about this point. I will literally argue with people. You know why? I tell them to do this in their personal lives too. And you know what they'll tell me? Tom, I don't want to pay the extra fees. And I would you stop? If you tell me that again, I'm going to take these papers and I'm just going to throw them at you.
Yes.
Because stop talking to me like that. And then if I convince them to go to the banks, then the bank will convince them not to do it.
Absolutely.
Because of the minimum fees they need. I'm like, you're thinking like a poor person.
Yes.
The people who make and save money don't concern themselves with such minutia here.
No.
Open the freaking bank accounts.
Yep.
So you get people to do it.
Yep.
Good for you.
So most of the time we say, listen, you're going to pay more in fees, but you're going to be more profitable. So what would you rather have, lower bank fees or more profit? Well, it's a no-brainer, right? I'd rather have more profit. Okay. So yeah, so paying bank fees is a challenge to manage. I'll give everyone a free hint here. I'm not paid to say this, but Bank of Montreal is my go-to bank.
Why?
Because they have an account called the e-business account. 0 monthly fees on a business checking account.
The only problem with the Bank of Montreal is their name is also similar to the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah,
so because of that association, it's difficult for me. But okay, I guess if you want to save some fees.
We'll just say BMO then.
BMO. Okay, BMO. Okay. BMO. I like that better. Yeah,
so they have an e-business account. And so you can have savings accounts, but you can also have a free transactional account. Deposits are free, like electronic deposits are free. You only pay if you use a teller. Okay. They also have one of the best online banking for business suites on the market. Now, it's still a bit kludgy. It's still really more designed.
Why? What is it that you like about that?
Well, so one of the things they have is you can create templates. And I love their template functionality for doing transfers, because on Profit First, we're moving money between accounts a lot.
Sure.
Okay. And so you can create a template, and then you just bring up that template and it says, I'm moving from the income account to the operating expense account. I'm moving from income to profit, income to owner's pay, income to GST, income to income tax, etc. And so on one page, you just go, here are the numbers I'm moving, and I give my clients a spreadsheet.
Oh, that's nice.
They put in their income
number,
that's pretty
good.
And it spits out the amounts to transfer.
Okay.
They take that and just put this into this template and hit go.
No way.
And it just does all of it in a matter of a second.
Huh. I don't think TD has that, Nick. Do you think so?
They do have a more advanced version. I just don't know whether it does all these templates.
On the small business side, their interface is like a little bit modern.
Mm-hmm.
On the commercial banking side, it's
from 1997.
It's a little more industrial, yeah.
Oh,
And BMO's is the same. It's a little more industrial looking. And
We
it's
have to
obviously
use
That's very kind of you. The
big-
words you're using are very nice.
Yeah.
They look just old and crappy to me.
Yeah.
I was on the phone with some supporters because for one of the things we have here, we still have one Windows computer and we have to use Internet Explorer. We have to use, actually, they got rid of Internet Explorer, so we have to use Microsoft Edge in Internet Explorer mode to be able to access this one functionality on the TD side.
Really?
And I'm talking to these guys, I'm like, guys, like...
It's
like,
literally
when
a
is this-
crime at this point.
Yeah, and even their support's like, oh, well, we're told it's coming.
But I got to
You've been
admit,
telling me that for 2 years.
but I got to admit, the TD web interface for just small business stuff in general,
Yeah,
and
for the
app
commercial side
to
and
move
the small
stuff around
business
is really,
not bad.
it's
Oh,
really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It's good. I use TD and Bank of Montreal.
Yeah.
So TD is my secondary bank.
Got it.
BMO is my primary bank. Don't tell TD
Okay.
because they think I'm still listening.
Okay, so you take 5%.
Yep. So you take 5%, you put it into the profit account, you take an amount of money for owner's pay, you put that into another account, you take your GST money, put that into a separate account. And if you only learn one thing about Profit First, it's take your GST money and put it in a separate account.
Oh,
The first time I had to pay, when we got our real estate licenses and I didn't understand, I owed this GST.
Yep. It's a killer.
Oh my gosh, a heart attack.
We've seen that happen to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Where they
I just spent it all.
Yeah.
I just spent it.
Yeah.
But
So,
anyway.
so Mike in the book, he talked about bank balance mentality. Most business owners run their business by how much money is in their bank account. And when you've only got one bucket, you feel like you're rich. Oh, I've got all this money in my account. Can I afford that new car? Of course I can. Look, I've got all this money in my account.
Yeah.
But you forget that your GST installment is going to be $25,000. Your income tax bill you haven't even paid yet is another $15,000.
Payroll's coming out.
Payroll's coming up, and so the whole idea of Profit First is that it's like the dietary principle of small plates. Separate your money into different
it's brilliant.
buckets.
We
only spend from one bucket at a time.
So this kind of started with my kids since they were young. I use jars to do it instead of this, because at the beginning it's just literally if they're lucky enough to get some cash from a birthday or something, I tell them you put this much in a jar and this the savings jar, this much is your spending, and now you can go spend freely. It doesn't matter to me what you spend on. It's your money to do with as you please, and here's the savings. And as that builds up, it's been a really nice strategy. I didn't realize adults need it so much. So now I've been really going around telling a few people that will remain nameless, here's what you need to do.
Yes.
Go to the bank and using what you're saying in their own personal lives, even if they don't have their own business, just in their own regular life, go and make 7 or 8 accounts.
Yes.
We still keep all our accounts. Ours are like insurance, recreation, vacation, savings, taxes. I think kids, just like a general kind of kids.
We have a few we've used Tangerine because it's an online bank. So same thing. There's no fees. So we have a number of them. We have a number of them up there. And then we just transfer into one account and then we can split it up that way.
It's just changed our lives. I think I started that when I was in my 20s when I just got married. So I guess right around late 29, right at the end. And we just reverse engineered how much money we spent on each of these things the previous year.
Yep.
And then we figured, okay, that's how much we need for the future year. So let's just, every time we get paid, take that percentage of the income that comes in. So we get paid. So this is when I was getting paid through a salary. Salary would drop into one account. And on payday, Carol would go in and take the percentages that we had in a little spreadsheet and move like, $143 from here over to here. But it literally changed our lives because then when the kids had something to pay for, we would just say, well, what's in the kids' account? If they had to pay for hockey or soccer or something like that. And it was all accounted for.
Yes.
It really, and I'm sure we weren't even perfect at it, but it changed our lives dramatically.
Yeah. I've got a client out in BC, and when they started working with me, they were about $75,000 in debt. And they were just doing single bank account, method. And
Single bank account method. I've never heard that. Yeah. That's
and a line of credit. Because the line of credit's like free money, right? Or a big overdraft.
It is.
It's like free money.
Yes.
And so the first thing we did was we just had them go and open up 7 bank accounts. We gave them a formula, and for the next 12 months, they just did this formula and paid for things out of those buckets. I didn't even do much else with them. We just put that simple, I could just call it the mechanics of Profit First. Just put the mechanics in place. Well, a year later, their line of credit was in funds. They had gone from being $75,000 overdraft in their line of credit to being
How happy
funds,
were they?
and they didn't know what they had done differently.
amazing, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Now the banks take them seriously if they actually want to borrow money. If they have a need for money or to refinance, because they've shown that they're not relying on a line of credit to run their business. This is one of the biggest mistakes business owners make, is that they run their business relying on their overdraft or their line of credit. If you're relying on your overdraft or your line of credit, you are in debt, and that can get pulled with no notice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the banks can just decide that we no longer want to extend 50,000 of credit.
We've seen that
So many
have
friends.
that paid off in the next 3
and
days.
some businesses need it. We're chasing receivables and they need lines of credit. But but I see what you're saying. Like if you're living, if you're
always
operating
in the overdraft.
Yeah. Well, cool, Peter. So, is there, before we wrap up, anything else that you wanted to talk about? Time has passed quickly here.
Yes.
It's funny you're bringing this up, though, because literally tomorrow, for one of the Rockstar Minute videos, it's been like 6 weeks in the making. I haven't got to it. I went to the dollar store and I got jars, and I'm going to make a Rockstar Minute video. The jars are sitting outside here. I'm going to show you before you leave, because that just changed my life when I heard this concept for the first time. And I heard it as jars.
Yes.
Like literally go home, get these jars, label the jars.
Yep.
You know, savings, taxes.
As simple as possible.
And that's that, as embarrassing as it is to admit, that changed my financial life.
Yeah.
Because until that moment, any money that had come into my hands, I would just like spend it. I thought it was mine to spend.
Well, you had no system. It was a system.
Exactly.
From
That's right.
nothing.
Yeah.
It's
You had nothing.
and the Profit First methodology is a very simple system. The hard part of Profit First is changing the way you think about your business so that this is now your reality. Mm-hmm. This is the challenge we have with all of our business clients. So we can give them the mechanics, but if they don't change the way they think, nothing works. And they say, oh, Profit First didn't work for me. I'm like, well, Profit First will work for you. If it didn't work, it's because you didn't work for Profit.
You didn't change, because that first year or 2 or 3 might sound like forever, but you might have to change your standard of living a little bit.
Yep.
Because you've been spending everything that comes into that primary bank account. Exactly. And when you do Profit First or the jars or the grandma's envelope strategy, you have to reduce your standard of living a little bit because you're pre-allocating to these other expenses that you need in the future. So if it didn't work, it just means they didn't sacrifice. But anything, whether it comes to anything in life, the long term, I think you mentioned it, that properties are a long term thing. Yeah. Anything that is of value requires some long term thinking and commitment.
Yes.
Anything.
Yes.
So if you can just get through it, I would argue that 1 year, everyone adjusts. For us, when we did it, I think we adjusted within a few months.
Yeah.
Like this is just, we just have this much money to spend now on, these things instead of a little bit more. It wasn't like that big of a deal at all.
Yeah.
You kind of adapt really, really quickly.
Yeah. The mental shift is that you have to rethink about how you make financial decisions based around how much money have I got to spend rather than how much should I spend.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how much should you spend? You could spend an infinite amount of money. But how much can I spend? Well, that's now limited by how much money you're actually allocating.
Yeah.
And you've got to right size your business to fit that.
And the discipline that comes from that kind of approach is really freeing. Like I would think between Nick and myself, Nick is much better at money management than I am just naturally. He's just going to handle things better. I need these little processes, and I would consider myself a little more loosey-goosey with kind of managing stuff, but these little processes in my life have really helped me. Because if I didn't have them, I would be that person, there's all this money in the bank account, let's go nuts, I don't know, let's go buy this, do this, and I know it would be silly, but I need these processes, and they've really helped change my life. It's also why I like real estate. Because real estate to me is forced savings.
Yes.
The debt is getting paid down. I can't touch it. I can't press a button and sell it. You know that time where you mentioned the student rental property was left a bit messy and dirty and stuff? We've had situations like that where either Nick or myself, it's been both of us. Yep. At one point it's like, sell it. Sell that property. Just get rid of this. This thing's a piece of shit. Get rid of this property. And then, it's hard to sell. Not hard to sell. I just mean, you actually have to list it and get it ready to sell. And in that process, you end up cleaning it up. And then you're like, I guess it's not that bad.
Yeah.
We'll keep it. We'll rent it out again.
Literally every time I've had that thought, as soon as the property junk gets emptied out and it gets a clean, then I walk around, I'm like, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
But it's literally that, it's just the cleaning. It's almost always the cleaning.
That's the crazy thing when it comes to business as well. Because, when people start to think about, maybe I should sell my business, if they go and speak to a good broker, the good broker will say, go back and clean the house first.
Yeah.
Let's do something with this business so it's more presentable. So, that might take 2 years.
And then once you do that,
so they go away, they turn it around and they put systems in like Profit First, and they're now making a consistent profit. And then they come back and they go, why would I want to sell this?
Yeah.
I'm actually making money for the first time in my life.
I'm keeping this sucker.
And I actually don't have to work as hard as I used to because I'm extricating myself from the business. Why would I sell this?
Yeah. Especially, actually, I have a few people going through this exact situation in an inflationary environment that we might see in the next few years. Some people are having a difficult time justifying selling a business because they don't know what to do with the cash they're going to get, because then they have to put it somewhere else that's actually earning
The asset. Yep.
to protect what they've earned. So then they end up deciding, you know what, I'm just going to keep the business because the business is producing cash flow.
Yep.
And it's like an inflation hedge for me here.
Yes.
So, Peter, thank you for anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up today?
No, I mean, if you want to check out my business, I'm fuelaccountants.com, and we serve primarily small, family-owned businesses. Our specialty is in e-commerce businesses and skilled trades, although we do a general practice, but that is our specialty.
Skilled trades.
So plumbers,
How did you get into the skilled trade?
I don't know how I got into it. It's just that you look back over time and you go, well, where is our biggest concentration? And our biggest concentration was in skilled trades and online and e-commerce businesses.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And partly too, I mean, I've been virtual for over 9 years. So I've just got that affinity with online businesses. And, look, I'm nowhere near a skilled tradesman. I'm not built for that. I have soft hands. But for some reason, I've just, attracted, and my business partner, we've just attracted lots of skilled trade clients all over the place.
Awesome. So
yeah, lots of electricians, builders, plumbers, that kind of stuff.
Peter, pleasure getting to know you better. Thank you for doing this. Really, really appreciate it. Appreciate you sharing all your story and your journey. We can't wait to hear more. If you go back to New Zealand, we're going to have to go because I just thought not only sheep, there's lamb there too. No, lamb chops.
Lamb is
the lamb. Yeah.
Lamb chops. Something else we got to go back for. Butter and lamb chops. I mean, that's worth it. And Sauvignon Blanc. We're good. We're good. There. Peter, thank you so much. Thank you. Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Term show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.